Welcome to my channel. I'm Chastity and this is Corporate Audacity, a channel where we discuss the audacity of corporations, the perils and triumphs of working in the corporate world. In today's video, we take a deep dive into the phenomenon that is remote work. Several people have asked about my experience working remotely, so I decided to create an informative video series on the topic of remote work. I've worked in the corporate world for almost 20 years now, and I've worked remotely on and off for the last 10. I began working from home in 2013, before it was highly coveted and before there was a global health crisis causing a shift in the way we work. So in this multi-part series, we discuss the facts, the pros and cons, and some of my own personal experiences with remote working to help you make the best decision for you. This is part 3, the last video of the remote working series. And you can find the links to parts 1 and 2 in the description box. So check out those videos first if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe and get your notifications for our next video series. Let's dive right in. In the last 2 videos, we talked about the pros and cons of remote working. We talked about the great flexibility and cost savings that remote working offers. But we also discussed the bad side of remote working, which included heavy monitoring and how you might face a lot of resistance from senior leadership post-pandemic. We also talked about the hybrid working as another option. When I was preparing for this video, I saw yet another CEO publicly state their disdain for remote working. This mogul doesn't even like the hybrid model. The pushback on remote work is almost comical at this point. Take a look. Retail business tycoon Martha Stewart recently told Footwear News that, quote, "You can't possibly get everything done working 3 days a week in the office and 2 days remotely." She goes on to say, "Look at France for being off for August. Should America go down the drain because people don't want to go back to work?" I think Martha is making the mistake that a lot of people do, thinking that the office building is synonymous with work. So if you're not in an office building, you're not working? Well, I don't think people have been on a 3-year vacation, Martha. They've literally been working, just doing it from home. One would think the convicted felon would understand this, since she was on a 5-month vacation at the Resort de la Federal Prison and then spent another 5 months on house arrest, where she likely worked from home on her next business venture. Glad you got out and got back to work, Martha. The irony in this is that this feature story by Footwear News was actually about Ms. Stewart's work ethic and her empowering women to step up their game and be unafraid. Well, one of the best ways women are empowered is having the flexibility in their job to be able to work and take care of their home life, which is something remote working offers. But I digress. I'll link that article below. Let's get to the actual topic of this video, which is the scams and deceptive practices that often surround remote jobs and the recruitment process. Okay, let's talk about the scams and deceptive practices that employers and regular Joes engage in when it comes to remote working. Everyone knows that remote jobs are highly coveted, especially now since there's a big push to get workers back into the office. So scammers and deceptive employers alike tend to prey on the vulnerable job seeker. One way scammers do this is through spear phishing. What is spear phishing? It's the practice of sending emails impersonating a specific business or person, usually trusted or visited by the target person, and then using a fake website in order to get the target person to reveal confidential information about themselves. The Malware Fox channel on YouTube goes into greater detail about what spear phishing is and tips to keep yourself from being a target of this kind of attack. So if you want to learn more about it, I'll link that video below. Companies and job seekers both become victims to these types of spear phishing attacks. An article by Holly Quinn of Technically details how this scam works, as she tells the story of what happened when Brand Swan was hit with a recruiting scam. Brand Swan is a tech company based in Delaware whose communications manager received a message from an individual stating that they had been hired by Brand Swan. When their co-founder, Jane Clark, found out, she knew immediately that that person messaging them had not been hired because the company was not hiring. How this happened is that the scammer pretended to be Brand Swan and then pretended like they were hiring. They likely got a list of people's email addresses and sent them emails stating that they applied for a job and got it. Once the target person is hired, they were informed that the company will send them money to help with office expenses or set up direct deposit for their paycheck, which then requires the job seeker's bank information. But sometimes it's not even your money that they're after. It's your identity. Then they will sell your identity and make money, lots of money. Scammers will email a job seeker a link to complete an application for a fake job on their website. Think about all the information you give when you submit an application. Your full name, address, phone number, date of birth, previous employers, schools you attended, and you even create an answer to a challenge question that provides private details about you that most people wouldn't know. Scammers can use all this information to create another you. How did this happen? Well, it happens pretty easily in this technological age, but it's a lot easier to do when many job seekers are looking for and applying for remote positions. Oftentimes, the companies are in other states, some even out of the country. And all communication is done via email or phone. Nobody's actually going to the office location to meet with the hiring manager. And sometimes it's even difficult to tell where the office is truly located. The enticing part is always a higher than average wage to work at home in a job that requires only a computer and very little experience. With the rise of companies using artificial intelligence, it's harder to tell if you're being scammed or if the employer is just using AI to batch email applicants, which is a perfectly legitimate use of technology, especially with the large influx of applicants responding to a remote job posting. A lot of companies, both big and small, have been hit with spear phishing scams related to recruitment. That's why you'll now see employers posting scam disclaimers on their websites or other job board sites, letting candidates know about these scams and how to contact the company directly to report them. What usually tips me off when I get these kinds of emails is the bad grammar and vagueness. It'll say, "Hello, candidate," or "We want to offer you this vacancy." The article by Technically offers some good tips for avoiding these scams, and you can find the link to that below in the description. So we've talked about the scams, but there are actually some real companies who prey on remote job seekers. They do this via deceptive recruitment and hiring practices. Now, they technically aren't scamming or doing anything illegal, but I would consider what they're doing to be immoral. So what are they doing? Well, several different things. Here are 3 that I've come across lately. Number 1, deceptively inaccurate remote job postings. Number 2, fishing for talent, but not really hiring. Number 3, posting positions previously filled. Let's start with number 1, deceptively inaccurate remote job postings. The word remote is in quotation marks because employers have caught on to many job seekers' desire to land a remote position, and they've exploited that desire by adding the word remote to job positions that are technically remote. Recruiters know that they'll get more clicks on the job posting and potentially more applicants if they add remote to the title. Sometimes the headline of the job will grab your attention by saying remote, so you have to click on the posting and read the entire description, even going all the way down to the bottom and checking the fine print to get the true information about the job. Sometimes it's remote, but remote only if you live in a certain city or state. Or it's remote after 90 days on site. Or it's remote if you have proven yourself to be worthy. Take a look at these job postings from LinkedIn. The job header has the word remote in it, so it comes up in the list when you do a search for remote positions. But once you scroll to the bottom of the posting, it's only remote if you live within 50 miles of Bentonville, Arkansas. But this one isn't that misleading because they actually listed Bentonville, Arkansas in the location. My suggestion would be to only click on postings that have the words United States Remote in the headline if you're in the U.S. Like this one, Healthcare Claims Analyst, United States Remote, $43 per hour. Seems pretty legit to me. Let's keep reading. Oh, wait. It says 100% remote, preferred locations, New York, Florida, Missouri, and Texas. So you can technically still apply if you live in California, but you're likely to be automatically screened out. The recruiter or their AI system will probably filter out applicants from states that are not on their preferred list. Let's look at another one. Fraud investigator, remote eligible. What the heck is remote eligible? Well, let's keep reading to see if they tell us. There it is, towards the bottom of the posting. Remote eligible in Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, and Florida. So if you're in Georgia, sorry to hear that. Oregon, no job for you. Michigan, Ohio, don't even think about it. Texans, don't even apply, and so on and so forth. But you get my point. You just wasted 5 minutes of your search by clicking on this posting and reading it, and some of you may even apply before you notice that you're ineligible. Or you can just move to one of those 4 eligible states. Here's another one. Senior Applications Analyst for Delta Dental. It pays 6 figures. Nice. But this says on-site in Alpharetta, Georgia. Count me out. I'm not sure why this is coming up in my search. Oh, wait, I see. It says telecommuting is permissible from any location within the United States. So does that mean I can apply if I live in West Virginia? Not so fast. When you scroll down to the bottom of the post and read the part I've highlighted here, unfortunately, our Delta Dental Enterprise is unable to hire individuals residing in Alaska, North Dakota, Nebraska, Hawaii, Oklahoma, Vermont, Maine, West Virginia, New Hampshire, Wyoming, Puerto Rico, or other U.S. territories at this time. Wow, that's a lot of states. Y'all play too much. Moving right along. Okay, here's a good one. Information System Analyst, and it says United States Remote. So that means I can work anywhere in the U.S., right? Nope. Let's read the highlighted part. This position is remote, but must be within the local DMV area. That's Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. That cancels out the other 47 states. So my earlier suggestion of looking for jobs with the words United States Remote won't even help you weed out a lot of these disingenuous job postings. This is very frustrating for job seekers. It's a waste of everybody's time, and the recruiters know this, but clearly don't care as they continue to post this crap. Let's move on to number 2 on our list of deceptive recruitment and hiring practices. Number 2, fishing for talent but not really hiring. This is something that companies do whether they are posting an in-office position or a remote position. But it's become more prevalent with the rise of remote work and the large pool of applicants that come along with a remote job posting. I'm sure you've seen these job posts. The company is urgently hiring, yet they are reposting the same job every 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes they change the market region. One month it's California remote, the next month it's Georgia remote, and the month after it's New York remote. Sometimes it's even United States remote. You can see from the posting where they have pulled in hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants for this one job. And they want us to believe that after pulling in thousands of applicants, they could not find one, not even one qualified candidate. I call bullshit. Now, there are some legitimate reasons that employers repost jobs over and over. Sometimes they have multiple openings and don't want to reinvent the wheel, so they make one job posting and just repost it every time they get a new requisition. But that's not the case with all employers. Sometimes they're just fishing for talent. It's like a bachelor on a dating site. He goes through all the trouble of setting up a profile, writes a few paragraphs about he's looking for the one. He dates a few suitors, but he still keeps his dating profile active, keeps paying the subscription, browses through all the new faces that pop up now and then, and entertains messages and calls from those fresh faces, knowing the relationships will never materialize and nobody is actually the one. And even though the ladies are left wondering what happened and hate that they wasted their time, he doesn't care one bit. The employer in this scenario is that pretentious bachelor. They are doing one of three things, I believe. They're either one, fishing for applicants, two, collecting job seeker data, or three, making it appear to human resources, their stakeholders, or the federal government that they are actively hiring and therefore need additional funding. We saw number three come into play during the pandemic, when many companies were seeking government loans to keep them afloat. So they need to show the feds that they made good use of that money by trying their very, very best to hire more people. But unfortunately, they just couldn't find any good talent in these here United States. I've been caught up in this nonsense that is number one and number two as well. I applied for a job and did the phone screening, the face-to-face interview, the group interview. I met every single qualification for the job. During the phone screening with the recruiter and the interview with the hiring manager, I asked how many positions there were and how soon they needed to hire someone. I was told that they needed to hire immediately and that there was only one position. Well, a couple weeks after the final interview, I got the stock email saying, "Though your skills were impressive, we have decided to hire another candidate who better suits our needs." Okay, fair enough. But then that job was posted again the next week, and then posted again the next month, and posted again the next month. Odd. If you hire another candidate, why are you posting that same job again? Well, it turns out this practice is very common now. Let me know in the comments section if you've encountered this, and we'll move on to number three. Number three, posting positions previously filled. Try saying that 3 times. This goes right along with number two. Companies are casting their net out into a sea of remote workers when they've already found their catch in the pond right in their own backyard. Certain companies will have already filled a position internally and yet still put out a job posting externally. This is fairly common. Sometimes they're just following their own hiring processes. Sometimes HR or senior leadership thinks it's a good idea to pull in a mix of both internal and external candidates, and that's not against the law. But this practice ends up wasting the external job seekers' time and effort. So they end up sending out a slew of rejection emails to all the external candidates who never had a chance in the first place. Or they'll go so far as hiring that external candidate, even though the job he or she applied for has already been filled. In order to do this, they have to play around with the job title and the requisition so they can hire 2 candidates for the price of 1. So the external candidate ends up accepting a job offer for a job that is different from the job they applied for. Sometimes it's a lesser position with menial responsibilities. Many times the internal candidate doesn't know how to perform ABC job requirements. But hey, he's a great guy, so he deserves the job, right? Now that external hire who can perform ABC job requirements doesn't realize they are taking a completely different job and will still have to train the internal candidate who's doing the job they applied for. Their manager may say, "Hey, we want you to do this job for a little while and just see how it goes. Then maybe we can promote you into that role you actually applied for." This scenario can absolutely happen when you're working in an office, but happens more frequently with remote gigs due to the communication and relationship gap that often plagues remote workers who hire on with new companies. It's easier to lie to someone when you don't have to look them in the eye. This little switcheroo has happened to me before, twice. Well, we've reached the end of our video series on remote working. We've talked about the facts, the pros and cons, and some of my own personal experiences with remote working. I'd love to know your thoughts about remote working and what we've discussed in this video series. So leave me a comment below. Again, you can find the links to parts 1 and 2 in the description box if you missed those. Make sure you subscribe and get your notifications for our next video series, yet to be determined. So let me know if you have suggestions on topics you'd like me to cover. I'm Chastity, and this was Corporate Audacity. See you next time.